Hey Vinyl community, it's Robert Fithin and Vinyl Talk with Tavis. The YouTube channel says Gimme 10 disco albums, so you don't have to ask me twice. All about the disco. Growing up as a kid in the 1970s, I was not one of those cynical disco people because, you know, I was 5 years old. So I was all about loving the disco music, and so yeah, very excited to get into the 10 disco albums. These are in no particular order, by the way. These are just 10 albums. By the way, I got this, like I said, Vinyl Talk with Tavis. I saw his video, but this actually started off with a guy named 6-Inch Pianist 319, who I didn't know about, so I discovered his vinyl channel. He started this. So if you're going to disco, you got to learn how to disco with Let's Disco. This is one of those disco instructional albums that were out. This one actually has some pretty good songs on side too. Do What You Want to Do from T-Connection is on here. Get Down Tonight from Casey and the Sunshine Band. Got to have that. Also, Get Off Your Ah and Dance from Foxy, and Peter Brown's Do You Want to Get Funky With Me. Side 1 is all instructional, and you know, it comes with this book literally giving you step-by-step instructions on how to go out and shake your groove thing there. So Let's Disco. Not a great album, obviously, but you know, pretty indicative of the disco stuff. This is considered the first disco album ever. Gloria Gaynor's Never Can Say Goodbye. The reason this is considered the first disco album, this was one of the first albums to feature, or the first album to feature an entire side, just a non-stop medley of songs meant for put on at a club. DJ goes and takes a break or whatever, comes back, you know, 15 minutes later, the song's still on. So Never Can Say Goodbye, Gloria Gaynor. She credits herself with having the very first disco song with the single Never Can Say Goodbye, and the very final disco song with I Will Survive, which came out in 1979. Great year for disco. Like this, Donna Summer, Bad Girls. I'm assuming that disco compilations aren't allowed here because obviously, you know, the best of Donna Summer or on the radio greatest hits would be the way to go. But as far as complete albums, this double album this was released, you know, height of her popularity when she was doing TV specials, and everybody loved Donna Summer. And Hot Stuff's on here, Bad Girls on here, Dim All the Lights is on here, One Night in a Lifetime is on here, all kinds of great stuff, and it's all got that Giorgio Moroder production on there. So really thick funk disco beats throughout, not playing around like light fluty kind of disco. This is the hardcore bass shaking disco. Casey and the Sunshine Band, woo! Gotta love Casey and the Sunshine Band. They were really, like a lot of disco, just about having a good time. And so many people were so upset with disco when it was, I hated disco. Gonna go burn disco records in a baseball field. It's like, calm down. Just change the channel. Disco music all about having a good time. This is the one with Shake Your Booty, Keep It Comin' Love, and I'm Your Boogeyman are all three on here. No Get Down Tonight, but that's of course on the Let's Disco that I showed earlier. But nice gatefold there of the guys in action. I always kind of found it difficult to watch Casey and the Sunshine Band perform like on TV, because he'd be a piano guy and he's always like bent over the piano. Like, for 2 hours, how does your back feel after that? If you're a pianist and you're standing up playing the whole time, like bent over like that, it just looks so uncomfortable. Andrea True connection, more. Yeah, Andrea True was a porn star, and this came out in 1976. Now, I was only like 4 years old, but what I understand is, from watching documentaries like Inside Deep Throat and things like that, the mid-70s, especially like 76, they tried to kind of make pornography kind of a mainstream thing, kind of go mainstream. So you had people going to see, you know, porn movies and talking about them on The Tonight Show. You had Linda Lovelace running for president or something, I don't know. But you had porn stars having hit singles, and this is one of them. I guess this is probably one of the only ones. More from Andrea True Connection. I love this song when I was little. I had no idea what it was talking about, but I had a little 45. Here's a 70s label for you. Buddha Records. With the Buddha. A lot of that in the 70s. A lot of the Buddha label going around. Disco albums. A lot of Casablanca. You know, Casablanca RSO with the pig on it. I think somebody showed the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack, so you see that label a lot. But yeah, Andrea True Connection. More. How do you like it? Well, you could watch one of her movies and see how she likes it, or how the director liked it. You can't do disco without the Village People. Come on now. The Village People. I already showed Cruisin' in my the quarantine vinyl or the vinyl tag or whatever that was, where you had to show an album with a cowboy and a motorcycle. I don't know. I did 5 things for the same album. Anyway, Cruisin' I like better, but this is Macho Man from the Village People, containing, of course, Macho Man. Also has Key West on here, and this song called "I Am What I Am," which is like the Gloria Gaynor. It's just one big long side medley of those 2 songs. "I Am What I Am," kind of a gay anthem for the time. It's still a little bit coded as far as what they're saying, but they pretty much come right out and say, you know, I did not choose the way I am. I'm free to love who I want. And, you know, this is 1977, so that's pretty provocative for, you know, just a silly disco act is kind of what they were thought of. This is their first album, by the way, where, as you can see, they were just a studio group at that point. These aren't even, like, the real Village People or what was later thought of. This is just random dudes in, you know, New York, Greenwich Village or whatever. Hey, you want to be on an album cover? There you go. Village People's first album. Oh, you know what? Vinyl Talk With Tavis showed the Tramps. This is my favorite. I had to show it too just because this is like my favorite disco album cover ever with that shoe. You know, when you've got a purple foot, an orange shoe, and a green heel like that, that is disco right there. I love that album cover. It took 25 guys to make this music happen, apparently. But yeah, Disco Inferno from the Tramps, come on. The 10-minute version. You can't... 3.5-minute version's cool if you're like in an elevator or something, but you want the 10-minute one. You can, that Saturday Night Fever actually has the 10-minute one. More disco shoes. Rhythm Heritage. Gotta love the disco shoe. Boogie shoes. I guess is what this is. This is the one with, is the theme from SWAT? Yeah, theme from SWAT's on here. That's an excellent instrumental. It definitely stands up more than the TV show. So, Instant Funk. A little more of a disco band than a funk band. They're on the 2 and 4, not on the 1, but got my mind made up. Come on, you can get it, girl. Anytime. Say what? It's that song. Yeah, Instant Funk. And sometimes finds... You know, great albums like this for like $1 or $2 or whatever. Now, disco albums pretty much, like here's a good example. Amy Stewart, Knock on Wood, or just about any of the disco albums I've been showing, usually have like one huge hit song like Knock on Wood, the remake of the 60s soul classic from Eddie Floyd, turned into a disco song. She would also do Light My Fire, Doors song, turn that into a disco song. But disco albums, for the most part, you probably want more like compilation type albums. Like there's a lot of great disco CDs, obviously. But I noticed there aren't a lot of disco compilations that got re-released on vinyl. And that's really the great way to listen to disco. I don't know about 8-minute long versions of really repetitious songs. Sometimes you just need the single version, you know. Disco Inferno, the exception, of course. But, you know, a great way to check out disco... K-Tel albums. Seriously. And the ones that they made in the late 70s don't really sound that bad. They're not that like early mid-70s where they're trying to do 10 songs on one side and squeeze. So there's a lot of songs on here, but it doesn't sound too bad. There's Disco Nights that somebody showed on here. There's Hitline with 2 Michael Jackson songs from Off the Wall on it. Sylvester songs on there. I mean, just incredible. But this is the one I grew up with that I loved and wore out. It's called High Energy. And if they would re-release this on vinyl and maybe up the sound quality a little bit, people would definitely want this. Heart of Glass, Knock on Wood, I Will Survive, Shake Your Groove Thing, Got My Mind Made Up, La Freak, Hot Number, Disco Nights, Fire, Stay the Night, You Never Done It Like That. And then it gets into rock, you know, all of a sudden Double Vision from Foreigner, but and Renegade from Styx. But High Energy, great, especially side 1, all disco. Hopefully they'll be smart enough to start releasing some disco singles in compilation form on albums, because there's nothing like putting on a great disco album. Almost as good as putting on a great disco 8-track, which that's the peak. But they're probably not going to re-release those. Now, disco, like I said, I really had an appreciation for it. I got my disco hair, you know, because of the stay at home, so very appropriate. Longer hair than usual. But I have a great appreciation for disco. A lot of it's nostalgia because, like I said, I was a little kid when disco first came out. But I never got into the I hate disco or disco sucks or whatever. I love hard rock. I loved Kiss. I loved, you know, AC/DC and all that. And then, you know, disco too. So loved all of it. But I can see why. I think that the tide started to turn a little bit with disco and people not liking disco when stuff like this started coming out. When like legitimate rock bands started putting out disco songs, you started seeing the Rolling Stones tongue with special disco version next to it. And everybody started having a disco song. Rod Stewart had a disco song. You know, even things that weren't even considered disco, like Kiss had that disc. I Was Made for Loving You. That was a big, that upset a lot of people, I think. When Kiss was the one that came out with the disco song, it was like, oh, come on. Really? Kiss? And so, yeah, that upset a lot of people. Like I said, Rod Stewart had one. There were a lot of forgotten ones done by major artists. Even something like Don't Stop from Fleetwood Mac kind of has a disco beat to it, even though it's not considered a disco song. Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band, Old Time Rock and Roll, talks about, you know, don't take me to a disco, you won't even get me out on the floor, but it's a disco beat song. I mean, the song is the 4/4, the disco, the 2 and 4, Old Time Rock and Roll. Listen to the beat. It's a disco song about not wanting to go to a disco. But yeah, everybody. Ethel Merman was the one that's the corny one that's popular, the cliche one to be like, even Ethel Merman had a disco album. I remember Johnny Cash even had a disco album out. He came out with a disco album. Country fans were like, what in the world? This, of course, has the his disco album that has Boogie on Down to Jackson's on here. Disco C-Do, yeah, is on here. It's kind of like a square dance disco thing. Didn't really work. The big failed single, Folsom Prison, Latin Hustle. Didn't really work for Johnny Cash, but, you know, even Johnny Cash. Okay, Johnny Cash did not put out a disco album. This is this is like some greatest hits and none of those songs exist. But the point is, legitimate artists, Rolling Stones, Rod Stewart, you know, Fleetwood Mac and Bob Seger coming up with disco beats really upset a lot of people. But there's nothing wrong with disco. It's fun music. It's music to dance to. Even if you don't dance, you can certainly find a way to move in a huge 2/4 solid on the floor disco beat. That's the simplest beat in the world. And for country fans, this is where line dancing started. So you have that. So long live disco. I didn't even bring up ABBA, which really, you had groups like that too. They weren't really disco groups, but had a couple of disco songs, like Dancing Queen and Summer Night City. You had all that. You had the one disco song, but the rest of their stuff sounded different, like Blondie, Heart of Glass. So didn't bring up a lot of that stuff. Just the true stone cold disco people, okay, for Show Me Disco 10 Discos. Robert Fithen here. Thank you so much again for watching. Please subscribe if you have not done that yet, and I will try to keep making videos that at least inform you, if not amuse you. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it. Hope you did, and appreciate you watching again. Thank you so much.